And it has always resulted in these schools having the highest academic quality. They are renowned throughout the country, and eliminating them is a real disservice to all children. And that's why the parents here, the community here, is against that, and we're going to speak out against it, and we're going to make sure that the mayor and the chancellor and everyone else get the message. You begin. If we can get everybody's attention, this is a tremendous turnout. I can see it's literally, we don't have an inch of space. Every inch in this community room is filled. And I want to thank all of you for that. Because when an issue occurs that threatens the future of children, we can be assured our community is going to be right there and speaking up very loud and clear. And clearly this issue affects all of our children. Yes. Now, we've called this meeting. First of all, I want to bring you up to date on what is happening in Albany and elsewhere on this issue. And then we want to talk a little bit to you about some things that we need to do to make sure that our children are protected. First of all, in the closing weeks of session in Albany, because under the law, ultimately it is the state legislature only that has the power to determine whether or not a particular test or a particular criteria should be applied to the specialized high schools. They did that in the 1970s, and at that point, the SAT was set up as the criteria, the sole criteria for Stuyvesant, Tech, Bronx Science, for the specialized schools. So under the state law, that's the criteria that exists. Yes. Now, the city can set up other schools, other specialized schools if they want to call them that. There's a system set up whereby right now they want to put the air conditioning. The specialized high school admissions test is the criteria for admitting and selecting students for the specialized schools. And specifically, the law mentions 3 or 4 schools. There's another specialized schools that the city has set up, and they have basically followed that criteria. Now, there's a couple of things. Number one, the city, there's nothing to prevent the city from setting up additional schools, all right, which could be a different criteria, but they should not be changing the criteria that is used as the admission standard for the specialized schools we have now. It's got to be by merit. It's got to be by the SAT. Now, a bill was introduced in the legislature a couple of weeks ago. Actually, there was one last year also, but it never got anywhere. But this year, Mayor de Blasio asked that a bill be introduced that would drastically change the formula for admitting students into the specialized high schools. And he argued that the problem was there's a lack of diversity, that less than 10% of African American and Hispanic students are selected for the specialized high schools. Now, that is a problem. We want to have students from every neighborhood, but it's got to be by merit. And the way you do that, instead of admitting that the city has failed its obligation to children in all neighborhoods, instead of admitting that and promising to do better, instead, what the city has been doing is they want to hide the problem. They want to eliminate the passing a test which since the 70s has been the criteria for admitting children to our schools. And this diversity problem has not existed during the whole time since the test. The diversity problem has started because over the last 10, 20, 15 years, the city has stopped having talented programs in the early grades and in the middle school years in many of the poor neighborhoods. District 20 and 21, to their credit, the local educators, the parents, the community have fought to have those specialized school classes in the public schools for talented children, gifted and talented classes. And that's got to start from the early grades. We need to identify those children who are identified as being particularly bright even early on. And then we've got to provide them with the resources, with the classes, the enrichment that will enable them to be able to take the test and pass it. You know, I was a teacher for 11 years. And of those 11 years, I taught a gifted and talented class, 2 of those years. And my school was in Bedford-Stuyvesant, District 13. All of my students were African American or Hispanic. And I'm telling you, they were the brightest children. They could compete with children anywhere in the city. And they were given this gifted and talented program. Those children could have passed the SAT. They could have passed it. But the problem is that for whatever reason, the Department of Ed has decided it doesn't like the gifted and talented classes, the gifted and talented programs. It has stopped providing many of these programs in large parts of the city, including the poor neighborhoods. And that is disgraceful. That is absolutely outrageous. It is an example of the Department of Ed failing children in our city. And they need to acknowledge that. And they need to start providing that kind of enrichment, those kinds of gifted and talented programs to children in every part of our city. And if they do that, then you will obtain diversity by merit, not simply by ignoring the real problem. Now, there's a number of things that need to be done. First of all, I want you to know, we have 1 week left of session in Albany. This coming week is the final week for this year's session. The Speaker of the Assembly and the Governor and many others have indicated this bill will not come up for a vote this year. That's good news. So, how did that happen? It happened, and we will find politicians who will come and say, I was responsible for doing that. I was responsible for preventing a vote. What was responsible for preventing a vote was the thousands and tens of thousands of emails that came from parents to every elected official. And that is what will prevent a change in this system that will take away schools like Stuyvesant and Tech and all of the others. Instead of being the high quality, high economic standards that they currently have, those schools will be downplayed in terms of their standards unless, again, parents and community people speak out in the tens of thousands and let legislators know they do not support that and they will not accept that. So, we need to make sure that this bill, this proposal, which is so detrimental to all children, not only children in neighborhoods like District 20 and 21, but children in all neighborhoods, that this bill will never be passed. Now, there's a number of very specific things that need to happen between now and next year when this bill may come up again. First of all, parents and community people must take the time to be sure they are registered to vote. You must register to vote. And not only must you be registered, but you must actually vote when there's an election. You know, as powerful as emails and letters and petitions are, there is nothing that takes the place of people voting and politicians knowing that if they support something that people don't support, that they are going to have to face those voters on election day, and that those people that are opposed to this are registered to vote. So really, everyone here must make a commitment to make sure they are registered to vote, that their family members are registered to vote, and that their friends and neighbors are registered to vote. Your votes count, and they'll make a difference. And that's something that we need to repeat again and again. You need to reach out to people in the neighborhood. Reach out to people in your family. Reach out to people, expressing to them, telling them, urging them, register to vote so that you can make sure a proposal like this will never see the light of day. And there's a second thing that I propose. I suggest that in every neighborhood, including this one, that we need to have a committee, an organization, a group that will continue to watch this issue. And that when something is happening, when something needs to happen, that they will alert the neighborhood to have meetings like this meeting, where we express our feelings, where we express our concerns about our children and about the children of all over the city. You know, it's not just enough to protect one neighborhood's children. We have to protect the children in all our neighborhoods. Because the children in this neighborhood have been lucky. Because of you, because of community leaders, because of educators in this neighborhood, they have demanded that quality education classes and enrichment classes and talented programs exist in our schools. And that's why so many children in this neighborhood pass the test, because they've worked at it and they've been given the materials they need to pass it. But that isn't true in every neighborhood. And we need to make sure that the Department of Ed has those programs in every neighborhood, has those programs to meet children all over. Because I'm telling you from my personal experience, there are bright children in every neighborhood in the city. There are children who can pass that test, but they have to be given the tools. They have to be given the resources to do so. And the Department of Education has a constitutional responsibility to provide those tools and those resources to children in every neighborhood of the city. And we're not going to let them hide that or shrink away from that anymore. So I'm suggesting that we form a group, and we tentatively came up with a name. We can change that later, but tentatively, the South Brooklyn Quality Education. We came up with that as a name, the South Brooklyn Coalition for Quality Education. And we want to, I suggest strongly, you know, and when you fill out the front page of the pamphlets that you've been given out, one of the questions is whether you are interested in getting involved in that and whether you want notices when we're going to have other events or other drives or other, you know, other activities. It may be a forum. It may be asking you to get petition signatures on behalf of that issue. It may be sending emails or doing telephone calls. But if you're interested in, you know, being part of that, then please, make sure you fill out and check that off. The people here, is there anybody here in favor of eliminating the SHSAT? How many people are in favor of eliminating the test? Support the mayor's proposal? I don't see any hands, not even one. How many people are against the mayor's proposal? Let me see your hands. Okay, now be part of this group, be involved in this issue, do the things that are necessary to make sure that we protect our children. Make sure that we protect the concerns, the needs of our children. Because if you don't do that, then elected officials and chancellors will find the easy way to solve the problem. And the easy way is to hide it. Eliminate the test so it doesn't show that some children have been prepared and others have not. That's the responsibility of the Department of Ed, to prepare all children so that they can pass the SHSAT if they have the innate talents and skills to do that. Not all children can go to Stuyvesant. Not all children can go to Brooklyn Tech. But there are many children who can. And if they can, we need to bring that out. We need to develop them to their fullest potential. We need to make sure that those that have the skills, the talents, the knowledge to be part, without lowering the standards, to be part of a specialized high school education, that they will get that and they will be admitted. And that an objective criteria, like the test, is what's going to be used to admit them. So that needs to be done. Now, we also have invited to this meeting, and there's a number of elected officials, and we're going to be hearing their views on it. And we have also invited community leaders from different organizations. I just want to announce who they are, and then we're going to hear from the elected officials, and then we're going to have the community leaders give any comments that they want to, because they're in the trenches. They're the ones who are out there day and night fighting for the children, fighting for our concerns. And if we're going to have a real dialogue, a real united effort for quality education, they are part of our coalition. And they need to, be listened to. They need to be able to get the word out when something needs to be done, like you see with all the people here today. This is how we're going to beat back this effort to hide the failures of the Department of Ed and instead take a shortcut which cheats our children of the education they're entitled to. Now, I'd just like to announce some of the community leaders, and if there's anybody that has come in this vast sea of people, I haven't seen you because you're back there, I'll give you a chance to also announce that you're here or raise your hand. All right, we have elected officials, and I'll go just right around the table in the second row of the dais. All right, of course, Councilman Mark Traeger, who is the chair of the Education Committee in the City Council. We have Dr. Tim Law, who is the chair, the executive director, the president of Chinese American Social Service Association. And they've been very active on this issue. Dr. Law showed me, and I think he has it with him, a meeting that he held that Nancy and I were part of in 2015 on this very issue. Yes. Also, we have our state senator, Diane Savino, who is part of this community, represents part of this community, also represents parts of Staten Island. And she's here, and we're going to hear from her in a few moments. We also have Charles Ragusa, district leader. Again, many years involved in this and other issues. He is a retired educator. He was a dean at Boys High School, and he's been involved in education and all concerns in this community for many years. Also, we have district leader Nancy Tong. We all know Nancy Tong. She is someone who, when her son was growing up, was known as a school mom. She was always involved in his education. in volunteering to do things for the community. And we're very lucky for the last 10 years or more to have her active with us, active in our community, going to senior centers, going to schools, talking to organizations, speaking out on issues like this. I remember that Nancy Tong came to me a couple of years ago and appeared before a city council hearing on this very issue. And she spoke up very strongly against what the mayor is now proposing again to do. So we'll hear from Nancy Tong in a few minutes. We also have here Brian Gottlieb. Brian Gottlieb is the president. He is the president of the Toys for Tots organization, which every year for, I don't know, how many years, Brian?
24.
24 years. They have been conducting drives for our children. And he's done this in memory of his mother. He's done this to support the community. And he's been very actively involved in all of our children's needs. And we'll be hearing from him in a few minutes. All right, also we have up here Joe Rizzi. Joe Rizzi for many, many years has been involved with the Federation of Italian American Organizations. He has been an educator, he was an assistant principal, and after he retired he continued to be active in the community and is one of the ones who was responsible, together with the chair of the Federation of Italian American Organizations, Jack Spatola, and the other officers, of being responsible and contributing towards the building of Il Centro, which is located at 18th Avenue and Benson Avenue, which is open now and which is going to be serving the needs of so many of our children for many, many decades to come. So Joe Rizzi will give him a chance to give some remarks. All right, also we have Ethan Lustig, all right, who has been involved in the community. He was chief of staff to Councilman Mark Traeger. He's been very active in all kinds of educational issues, and we'll be hearing from him later on. All right, next we have Wai Chin. This is a person who I've seen her at many, many different meetings, at many events, standing up for people's rights and especially our children's rights. And she is the founder and the charter president of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. They have been outspoken in all kinds of different issues, and they are very outspoken leading parents in this issue against the proposal for the specialized schools. So we will be hearing from her, and thank you very much. And next we have a person who is really engaged in work that meets a lot of the issue that we're talking about. We have Leonora Bolovkova. Leonora, she is the president and founder of Aelita, Club Aelita. And she has been sponsoring concerts and music programs and arts programs and cultural programs, representing all. She sponsored programs which she gives free. There's no charge. She gets people to donate their time and services, and they perform these programs. She's had programs in support of our police officers. She's had programs in support and appreciation of our veterans. She's had programs on Russian heritage. She's had programs on Jewish cultural heritage. She's had programs on all groups. And she provides the opportunity and the experience for children to show their talents. And so she has done tremendous amount to enrich the lives of all of our children. Next we have up here, and this is a group that I've personally known pretty much for, what, 20 years or more?
More than that.
More than that. She is one of the founders and president, important mover behind the United Chinese Association of Brooklyn. And they have been speaking up on all kinds of issues, every issue that there is. And they've been serving people in this neighborhood. And they're recently now just about ready to expand their offices. So they're going to be able to provide even more services and more enrichment of all of our neighborhood. Stephanie H. Wong. She was my former chief of staff for many years. She's still active in the community. She's been involved also with the Federation of Italian American Organizations. She's somebody who has really played a big role in enhancing the life of our community. Next we have Louis Liu, and he again has been more involved in Sunset Park area, but his effects have affected every neighborhood in southern and middle Brooklyn. He is one of the founders of Brooklyn Asian Cops, which is an organization that works closely with our police department, making sure that everybody is safe and protected. And of course, we always wear these blue ribbons. Nancy and I and many other people have been wearing these blue ribbons. We have them over here, a box of them, to show our support for New York City police officers, because we need to make sure our children get well educated, that get all the opportunities, and we need to make sure also that our police officers are there to protect them so that they get the full potential of all these opportunities. Let's give a big round of applause for our New York City police officers. So Louis Liu has been working in the community. He's here. We'll have him say a few words. He's been involved in the lives of families all over this whole part of Brooklyn. And, you know, certainly we appreciate that very, very much, and we're very happy that he is here. So we'll give all of our community leaders and anyone else here who wants an opportunity to say a few words. But first, I would like to call upon our elected officials. And the first is somebody right from here in our own club, District Leader Nancy Tong.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming today, and I know, despite the looks of it, everybody is so concerned about our children. You know, we all come to America with a dream. What is that dream? To have a better life, either for yourself, or maybe your parents came, they wanted it for their children. So they all come here to have a better life. How do you do that? Well, for starters, you must have a good foundation. Meaning you have to go to school and studying hard. Now by taking this SHSAT, people who go and take this test and pass the test, meaning they do a lot of studying, you know, they start this when they are young. The parents make sure that during weekends, they don't go out and play. Instead, they use their time to study. And this test, I believe, it's equal. It shouldn't be saying it's all for Asian. It should be equal to everyone. So this is the only test that you can get in. If you want to go in, study. But as Bill was saying, District 20 and 21, yes, we are very fortunately that everyone knows about the test. And the ones that wanted to get in, they study. But what about the other schools? We want to do this not only for District 20 and 21 for the Asians, but for all people. So what the Department of Ed should do is to put more resources to all these other schools and introduce them to the SHSAT, letting them know that there is a specialized high school that if you want to get in, you should be preparing for this. And we should have resources for no matter where you live. Don't judge by the color of the skin. Just judge them by their merit. So if you pass that test, you will get in. And that's equal opportunity. If you go by the mayor's way, saying that you will put how many percent into that school, why is that school so specialized anymore? You're not going in as by merit. You're going by top 7% of your school average or whatever. How do you know that school says, well, I'm going to put this student as a top performer? I'm smart. See, all children are smart, but they're different ways. You might be smart playing ball. You might be smart, you know, doing other dancing or whatever. Each and every children is very smart in their own way. But those who are smart and study, we should not take away the privilege. We should let, if they earn their score, yes, they go in. That's how I look at it. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to introduce next one of our elected officials. She has some other event she has to go to, so I want to call her up. She's been the state senator for this area. She is very interested in children and concerns of people in the neighborhood, families, and I'd like to introduce Senator Diane Savino.
Thank you, Assemblyman Colson. I'm going to be brief because I know we want to hear from everyone else, and mostly we want to hear from the parents and the community members. I just want to say, Nancy Tong said it best. These children earn their way into these specialized high schools based on their own merit, and that's how we should keep it. The Assemblyman spoke earlier about what's happening in Albany. We have 1 week left in the legislative session. We are not going to pass the mayor's bill, not in the Senate and not in the Assembly. However, remember, the mayor is on a mission. Why? I don't quite honestly know. But he's going to want to tie this issue next year to the extension of mayoral control. There's already been some discussion because every 5 years we have to renew mayoral control of the New York City schools. Excuse me? He's going to want to make this part of it. Next year, the mayor is going to want us to include this issue in the extension of mayoral control. We have to show him that this is not an issue that we are prepared to tie to the continuation of school governance. This is a separate issue. The people will speak by your organizing, by your registering to vote, by turning out, making sure that your legislators, not just Bill and myself, but all around this city know that we are not going to eliminate the test as the entry method for the specialized high schools. Now, Mayor de Blasio raises a valid point, though. There are not enough students of color who are going to these schools. But what he really should be looking at is why aren't they taking the test? 4 years ago, my colleagues and I in the Senate did a study looking at the specialized high schools, and we found that across the school districts, there was not a uniform approach to letting parents know that these tests exist, starting from kindergarten up through the 8th grade. Not every school principal talks about the importance of studying and preparing for the specialized high schools. So if you don't know the test exists, and your principals and your teachers don't tell you about it, you are not going to take the test. And so what we did is, through the state budget, we allocated $20 million for the Department of Education to provide free test prep for every student in all of our elementary schools. They're still not doing it because the Department of Education is not putting the money into each school district. And as a result of it, some parents know, like you did, like mine did. 40 years ago, I took the test for the specialized high school when there were only 3. I got accepted to Brooklyn Tech. I didn't get accepted to Bronx Science. I didn't get accepted to Stuyvesant. 40 years later, my nephew took the specialized high school test, and he was accepted to Staten Island Tech, which is the #4 school in this state right now, number 39 in the country. That is the quality of education that exists in these specialized schools. It is critically important that we maintain that and we improve access for all students. And the way to do that is not to take away access for those who work really hard. These are very hard schools to go to. And if we simply just open up the door and say the test isn't important, we're going to take a certain percentage from each group and put them in, what will happen to those students who aren't prepared? They will fail. They will not be able to stay in these specialized schools. They are that difficult. So we need to find out how to improve access for all students. Don't pit ethnic groups against each other. Everyone should know about the test. Everyone should have free test prep in their local school so they don't have to spend money on it. Everyone should have the opportunity to sit down and take the test, and everyone should have the opportunity to attend. And that is what we're committed to keep in Albany. The test will stay because it's important, and it's important for all of us to maintain these wonderful, excellent schools. So I want to thank you all for coming out on a Saturday to get involved in this issue. It is that important, and together we'll make sure that every kid, everywhere, in every community, has the same type of educational opportunities. That's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I also want to call up next District Leader Charles Ragusa. He has been active for decades fighting on the issue of education, fighting for the families of the neighborhood. And he has been very strong in terms of making a stand on this issue of specialized schools. So I'd like to call up Charles Ragusa.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Look, we have to keep on fighting to protect the specialized high schools and protect the exam. De Blasio is dividing this city. Instead of dividing this city, he should be improving the elementary schools. He should be improving the middle schools. And let me tell you a dirty little secret. Large numbers of high school graduates that go to the city university have to take remedial classes. That's an indictment of our education system. And I pledge to continue to work with Assemblyman Colton, District Leader Nancy Tong, and all the people here. Thank you.
Thank you. I also just want to mention they had to leave, and they're not actually elected officials, but they did take the time and the trouble to be here. We had here Max Rose, who is a candidate for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. He was here today, and he strongly supports this issue. And also Ross Barkin, who is a candidate for state senator in this area. He was also here. He's been at a number of the other meetings that were held on this issue, and he has indicated he strongly supports the specialized schools in keeping the test. And next, I want to introduce somebody who is very, very knowledgeable in education. In fact, he is the chair of the City Council Committee on Education. Mark Traeger, Councilman Mark Traeger. He has been involved with us many, many years. He was very active on my staff for over 12 years. He was very involved in education issues over those 12 years. He is somebody who is a former educator, really an educator himself. He was a teacher at New Utrecht High School, right in the neighborhood. He is somebody who understands the importance of education and understands the importance of making sure that we meet the needs of children in every neighborhood. And he's somebody who is certainly a very close friend and a good friend of all of us. I'd like to introduce now Councilman Mark Traeger.
Let's give it up to the hardest working, most honest, courageous public official in New York, Assemblyman Bill Colton. There is no one like Bill Colton. Am I right? Yeah. So, as Bill noted, education is very, very dear to me, as it is dear to you. I am a proud product of the public school system, from pre-K all the way. I went to Edward R. Murrow High School, which I know is not a specialized high school, but you know what? I still love Edward R. Murrow High School. I went to CUNY. I'm a council member, and now I chair the City Council Education Committee. And I'm very proud of that. Let me say that what the mayor proposed over a week ago was not even a plan. What the mayor proposed over a week ago was politics. You cannot convince me that the mayor of the city of New York is serious about this issue when the mayor and his Department of Education did not even consult the chair of the Education Committee in the City Council before his press conference. I want folks to be aware of that. And I used to teach government at New Utrecht. And let me remind Mayor de Blasio that the City Council is a co-equal branch of government and city government. We are not to be taken for granted. They only sat me down 3 days after their press conference, when I called the chancellor and needs to address the biggest problems in our city at the root level. Now, I didn't teach math. I taught history. But let me say this. The 8 specialized high schools combined make up about 1.6% of our entire student body. There are over 1.1 million students in our public school system. And the mayor, who suddenly is so interested in this issue, is suggesting that integration and education initiatives begin in the 9th grade at only a few schools in the city of New York? I asked that to the Deputy Chancellor when he sat down with me days after they rolled out their press conference. I said, let me learn about this plan. And I also reminded them. I asked them if they keep a calendar in their office. Because as Bill Colton noted, what their plan, a part of their plan calls for Albany changing the law. Well, let me tell you, there are only 11 days left of session in Albany. When you shape your priorities in Albany, you start in January, you don't start in mid-June. And that's why I am convinced it was politics. It was not serious. I, as the chair of the committee, work with the City Council and the Mayor's office early in the year, back in February, to shape our priorities. And let me share with you what we talked about in February. We talked about making sure that the state fulfill its obligation to fund public schools equitably in New York, where I think Bill and I are in agreement. We talked about letting the city of New York place more speed cameras where there's constant speeding by schools. And that is a public safety issue. But not once did the mayor's office or the chancellor's office tell us that they care about the specialized high school exam. That's why I know what was presented was a political game. Because the day after the mayor had his press conference, a friend of his named Cynthia Nixon, who's running for governor, began to talk about what the mayor presented and tried to turn this into an issue against Governor Cuomo. So the mayor takes an issue that involves your children's education and he tosses it into the political season. Our children are not pawns, and I will not allow them to be used as pawns in a political game. Now, Mayor de Blasio, let me remind you Some of your power is under mayoral control. Specialized high schools is one of them. He wants to talk about Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, and Brooklyn Tech. Let's talk about the rest of them. Right now, if the mayor was so serious about this issue, he has the power to abolish the exam for the 5 schools. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. Why? Politics. The mayor has the power to designate schools as specialized high schools, and he has the power to undesignate schools, to make them no longer specialized high schools. But the mayor did not do that. And let me go further. When you look at the enrollment, when you look at the pipeline to these specialized high schools, we found that there are about 21 middle schools in New York City that account for over 50% of the students going in to the specialized high schools. And when you look at deeper, go deeper beyond the middle schools, go into the elementary schools, you see that many of these pipelines begin with gifted and talented programs. Yes. So let me say this. Now, first of all, as a former teacher, I believe that all of our children are gifted and talented. Every single child. But why didn't the mayor talk about this during his plan? Why didn't the mayor discuss this issue during his plan? Because here's the issue. Now, there are gifted and talented programs in our neighborhood, but when you look at other neighborhoods in Brooklyn or New York City, you see very few. I don't think I've seen one gifted and talented program in the community of Brownsville in central Brooklyn. What is the mayor suggesting? Is the mayor suggesting that there are no gifted and talented children in Brownsville or in Bed-Stuy? Why isn't the city of New York investing in enrichment programs and expanding gifted and talented throughout the New York City schools? The communities that have been shortchanged should not be fighting with each other. They should be taking their fire at City Hall and ask, where are our resources? Where are our investments? Those are the questions that should be asked. So we need to make sure that there are gifted and talented programs and enrichment programs throughout the city of New York, in every neighborhood, in every zip code. That is absolutely critical. But I'll also share with you this. I believe that a part of this equation is that when you enroll in gifted and talented programs, there's also a process to get into that. So the city of New York doesn't want to talk about that process either. Why? Because I want you to know that to enroll in the gifted and talented program here in our neighborhood, they offer the exam in schools that are not even handicap accessible. So don't talk to me about integration and caring for all kids when you systematically leave out many children. Is the mayor suggesting that children with special needs are not talented? That they can't get into these schools? I'm the chair of the committee, just so you know. I don't have one fully accessible school in my district. So this integration conversation needs to expand. Yes, race is a very big issue. It's a critical issue. And the numbers, as Senator Savino mentioned, are very sobering. And I think that the mayor and some of his advocates, they've done a good job of describing the problem, but they have politicized the solutions. And in order to have a solution to this issue, because segregation in our school system is an issue, it's a very serious issue. But if you're serious about it, you're going to have to involve all communities. You're going to have to involve every community that has a stake in their child's education. And I also don't accept this notion that there has to be winners and losers in our school system. All of our children should find a way to have a seat at the table. And that's why under the current plan, the mayor doesn't even suggest or recommend expanding the number of specialized high schools. Again, under mayoral control, he has the power to make more specialized high schools. Why wasn't that a part of his plan? Why don't we expand more seats, more opportunity, expand the pipeline, expand equity and resources? Why not? Politics. And I'll close by saying this. He didn't want to talk about elementary schools either, because there are elementary schools that are highly segregated, not just by race, but also by economic status. But the reason why I think the mayor is afraid to talk about that is because it's going to highlight one of his major flaws in his housing plan. You see, you can't separate issues in our schools from issues in the community. You can't do that. When the mayor pushes out his affordable housing plan, he only pushes it out in certain neighborhoods and not others. Some of his own policies have led to the very segregation that he says he's talking about on this issue. And that's why, again, friends, I have to say to you that I am very proud to join Bill and to join many of my colleagues here to call this out what it is. This was a political game. This was a political stunt using our children as pawns. This was a game to divide communities, to divide issues, to keep us separated. But if there's one thing that I've learned working for Bill Colton, who I used to work for over 10 years, and I'm sure I've passed it on now to Ethan, who worked with me as my chief of staff, that a community united will never be defeated. We will remain united. We will remain united. We will demand a seat at the table. And I would say more than one seat. And there was a famous expression by a civil rights activist that said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, then you bring a folding chair to the table. And that's what we're going to do. And I ask our community, I ask our community to join forces with all communities. This should not just be an Asian American issue. This is a New York issue. This is an American issue. We're in this together. Whether your child lives in Bensonhurst, or lives in Coney Island, or lives in Brownsville, or in Park Slope, or on the Upper West Side, we all deserve a quality education. We all deserve access to gifted and talented programs. We all deserve access to a specialized school. And again, I have to say, let's also be careful with how we phrase these schools. Again, I have nothing but respect for Stuyt and Brooklyn Tech and Bronx Science, but I went to Morrow High School and I'm here. Let's support all schools, all communities, all kids, in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I told you he is definitely on top of this issue, and he's there with all of us on this issue. All right, now I would like to call upon our community leaders who have been involved, because your participation, your views are extremely important in making sure that we are all united and making sure that we get a message to the mayor, because this is something that involves all our children and the children of all neighborhoods in this city, and we want to make sure that there's a loud and clear message to the mayor about it. So, first of all, I would like to call up, all right, we'll start and go around. All right, Joe Rizzi. As I said, he's been involved in education in his career as an assistant principal at New Utrecht. He's been involved in it in his work with the Federation of Italian American Organizations, and he continues to be a strong voice for our families and our children. All right, Joe, would you like to say anything?
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to be brief. One thing I have to say, that with the dream team that we have behind us right now, we can expect nothing but success. So, thank you, Assemblyman Colton. Thank you, Councilman Traeger. Thank you, Charlie Ragusa. He and I will go back a few years, like a couple. And our other district leader, Nancy Dunn. I have to take you back a little bit in history, that when we went to school, Charlie and I, we were proud to say that we were the product of the New York City Board of Education, because big names in politics, in science, in business, anywhere, came from the New York City Board of Education. And I was proud, and I'm a proud product of that too. Then of course we got involved in things like bilingual education, special education, ESL, and I was there at the very inception. I must have given the first bilingual children, and they changed it year after year, only to see it wash it down so much that it didn't serve the purpose anymore. As long as we had a paper chase, as long as we did the paperwork, it didn't matter whether we educated bilingual kids or teach English to the ESL kids, or the biggest crime was the special education program that they didn't have a voice, almost. And I see it going that way. So we will not allow anybody, any heartless politician, or any leader who considers himself or herself leader, to wash down this program that allows kids to have access to the best school in the city. When I say the best school, is the ones that are more challenging. And I have to say that about 20 years ago, the Department of Education introduced a word like rigor, quality. Well, I don't think this is what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to eliminate rigor, they're trying to eliminate equality, and they're trying to eliminate also substance in a program. These are schools that produce future leaders. So please, stay on top of it. Let's keep this dream team supporting us, because there is nothing but pure hard work and honesty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, next I'd like to call up Brian Gottlieb, who for 24 years is part of the Shorefront Toys for Tots program, has been fighting for children in this neighborhood and their families. Brian?
Thank you, Bill. And I would first like to say thank you to Bill for being the leader in this and doing everything that you do on behalf of our children. And I'd also like to thank Nancy and Charlie and Mark and Diane, who've left, for everything that each of you do to make sure our children and our communities are safe. Now, I don't think if you go out into the community that you'll find anybody who would disagree that all children are entitled to a great education, or that diversity is an integral part of our society, and it should be. But I do think you won't find anybody who feels that this plan is anything other than an act to pander. It's something that is not designed to help children. It's something that's designed to take focus and attention away from where it needs to be. When I served as a member of Community School Board 21, we all joined together as an educational family with the philosophy of doing what's best for the children. Whether you're a community member, a teacher, a principal, a member of the janitorial staff, whatever your position was, whatever we could do to join together for the children, that's what the credo was, that was how we acted. And instead of putting forth a plan that would say, let's get the parents involved, let's talk to the people who matter most, the parents, the teachers, I haven't heard anything where the Department of Education has brought everybody in to discuss this or to get people's opinions on this plan. They do it in the dead of night or at the end of a school year when people are going away on vacation, when time is running out to do anything. So all this is an effective way to hide their true intentions. And it's hurtful because what they should be doing is coming out with more plans to try to enhance parental involvement and enhance community involvement in terms of working together for the best interests of the children of our communities. There was a reason why District 20, District 21, it was always regarded as the best in the city, and that's because of that philosophy. The City of New York should be spreading the resources around, as everyone has said, in the context of making sure every school has the resources that they need. Every child has access to enrichment programs, not just a selective group. And doing that, you can teach the kids, give them the education they need, give them the tutoring programs that they need, and give them the ability to pass the test and go as far as their dreams can take them. That's what we should be doing, not just arbitrarily getting rid of a test, for no purpose and no reason. So, Bill, again, I thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to working with you and each of you on this moving forward.
Thank you very much. All right, next I would like to call up again somebody who has devoted a large part of her life and her energy in helping families and helping children. And she is the founder and charter president of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, the Greater New York Lodge. I'd like to call up Wai Hua Chen.
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to thank Bill Colton for all of his work for years and years and years. I've known him. So thank you again first, Assemblyman Colton. And of course, I've known Nancy Tong and Charles Ragusa also for the last number of years. We've been fighting this together. They've been members of my group for 10 years who have been working on this. And we don't work on this to protect just, quote unquote, Asian kids. We do this for all of our kids. And it's our group that worked hard to get the funding, the $15 million too from the state, and then another 13 from the city to go into programs that throughout communities that do not have the same resources. So that was the money that Savino was talking about that went into the programs to get better outreach and better test prep to underrepresented minorities. So we are very concerned about this because the only way you can have enough people who can get into these schools is to raise the level of all of the students. The education has failed in this city. It really has. And you can see it particularly in these last couple of years. Now, what Bill was saying is that he taught students that could get into these specialized high schools of all sorts of races. Let me tell you, that in the 70s and 90s, over half of Brooklyn Tech was black and Hispanic. They took the test. The test works. So for any kind of background, you can do it, but it's exactly as you say with the G&T and the programs that have disappeared from many communities, that is going to impact them. But you do not take away the test, which is colorblind. It is background blind. People from all sorts of backgrounds from this world are coming in, and they may not know the language very well when they first come, but very soon they are able to work hard and get in from whatever backgrounds. It has to be that way because this is the American way. You're not judged by your race, you're not judged by your religion, you're not judged by how much money you have, not what country you come from, whether your parents happen to be the dishwasher or the president of the entire country. It doesn't matter. If you could take the test, you get in. You don't take the test and you fail, you don't get in. Now, for people who think, well, not everybody could take tests, well, that's true. Not everybody can do a lot of things. But for your test, we have only 8 schools are all test now. There are so many other schools. There are more screen schools. And you know those screen schools? They're much richer than your specialized high schools. These are not privileged students. These are students who come from very often very poor backgrounds. And we cannot deprive them of the opportunity to give back to this country, because it is by working hard, by performing hard, achieving, that they can serve this country. I will tell you the story of one student who went to Stuyvesant years ago. He was 12 years old when he came to this country. He spent 2 years hiding in an attic in Poland. He didn't know any English coming over here. And in 2 years, at the age of 14, he took the test and got into Stuyvesant. This was Raoul Hoffman, who for 2 years was hiding in an attic because he was Jewish during World War II. And then afterwards, he spent years traveling in Europe, all around, because he was a refugee. Came over here, not a word of English, and then he passed the test, got into Stuyvesant, and became a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. That is the opportunity that we cannot leave gone for our students who have worked hard. What we want to do is make sure that more students of any background are given the opportunity to study well and work well. So for this political ploy that our elected officials are doing, that is not what this group does. That is not what good elected officials do. For this proposal that they have gotten, that from the chancellor, from the mayor, this bill, they don't get an S in this proposal, satisfactory, for stupidity, okay? They don't get a D for divisiveness. They get an F, fail. So I want you to think about this. We're in this all together. We've got to keep one united front. We talk to the community, we keep the test, we keep the same admissions criteria clear, clean, and build for the education for everybody else. And we want to thank you, all of you here, Bill particularly, because as I said, I've been working with him for years on this. And then Nancy and Charles Ragusa. Nancy's been coming to a lot of meals and meetings, who you have seen running around all over in these meetings after meetings, and to keep all the facts and figures. I think it's a privilege to be able to look, remember, vote for the ones who will serve you well. Not because they look like you. Yeah, the test doesn't care what you look like, okay? Not because they look like you, not because they don't look like you, but for somebody who thinks like you and who will serve you and your purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to say, the reason I can be so energetic is all of you. You give me energy. And I will be your voice in making sure your energy and your devotion for children and families is clearly heard by the politicians all over in Albany, especially. And that's what we need to keep spreading. Because when I go to Albany, I am so much happier when I'm back here in Brooklyn with all of you. Because you really see it as it is and express your devotion and your love for your families and for making this a better neighborhood for everybody. So you give me the energy, and I'm going to keep speaking that out loud and clear to the powers that be. All right, I also would like to acknowledge we have here today another candidate for state senate in this year's elections, Andrew Granados. I'd like to call up next someone who has been very involved with the families in our neighborhood. As I said, she actually was my chief of staff for a good number of years, and she's been very, very instrumental in improving the neighborhood life. Stephanie Wong, founder of United Chinese Association of Brooklyn.
We found it together. Good afternoon. I'm here to express my support because I'm not used to speak in a crowd. So I need to write my notes and to read my notes and to talk. So I'm here to express my support of the specialized high school test and oppose the elimination of that test. Our children work hard for their better life, the bright future. But this plan is the punishment for these children who work hard. We all know no pain, no gain, right? And I felt Asian population. And we think back about the Peter Lam and a Chinese worker in the district. I think back to 30 years. Even though now it's got some improvement, but not enough. So, since a councilman Mark Traeger mentioned, this is not proposal, this is the politics. So let me ask all of you who are citizens. Nobody raised the hand. Who are citizens? Okay. Who register vote? And who go vote every time? We have quite a few here, but not enough. That's why we always been picked up. Because we have a lot of population in New York City, but we don't have enough voters to really go vote. So the politicians, they don't see you, even you are the citizen, and you have the U.S. passport. And I heard this back to the 30 years. The Chinese people, they want to become the citizen because they want to bring more people to come over here, but they never vote. As I say, we got the improvement, and I've been witness this, and we got more voters, but still is not enough. Like we have the candidate, John Liu, want to vote for a mayor back to 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. He lost, but he won here. And because we don't have enough people to vote for him. Otherwise, we won't have the de Blasio. And we won't have this disaster. So, we need to make loud voice. By how? By vote. We make loud enough, and all the politicians can hear. And some politicians, they come over the community for what? For money. And they don't support our community. On this issue, we have some politicians. They've been doing this. They got a lot of donation from our community. But he will stay next to the mayor to support him and have his own statement to support his proposal. So we have to make all the politicians know you are not only come to our community to get money, you have to support us. And my organization is going to fully support Assemblyman Colton's this new group we call SBCQE, and we're going to work together, and we're going to fully support him. And we want to work everybody together and make this successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have someone who again has been very active for a long time in the community, families and children. He's the head of an organization which works very closely with the New York City police officers and who works to protect our community, particularly in the Sunset Park area, is somebody who is a leader, and we're very happy to have him with us today. I'd like to introduce to you Louie Lou.
Thank you, Summerman. Summerman is always get involved with the media and for any kind of the community lead. So thank you very much for Summerman. Thank you for the Charlie and Nancy's in this cup. So we don't want to change the saying because and we not agree for mayors or city hall anything to talk about that, because any without communication with our community knows this is not right, so we don't want to get involved there, right? So and also I see a lot of Chinese here, so let me say a few Chinese words. So 我们一定要把自己的选票集中起来在下一个选举当中，我们要看到那跟市长有关系的，跟他支持他这观点的这个的人，我们一定要不要投票给他们？我们要团结起来，一起把这件事情做下去，因为明年他们市长他还会提出来这个要求，这个事情不会是一天两天就解决的。Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and now we have, again, another community leader. Dr. Law was an educator in the New York City Department of Education for many years. He retired, and now he's very active, continuing to be active, supporting our children and our families. So I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Tim Law.
Thank you, Mr. Colton. When I walked in this morning, Mr. Colton said that, Dr. Law, go up to the stage. I said, me? Why? Okay, I tell you, I work for New York City Department of Education for how long? 35 years. So you asked me to talk about this specialized high school exam. I will say a few words about it. SHSAT, what's it stand for? Specialized High School Admission Test. Okay, this test, the mayor, some elect official always said that we have to eliminate. The other people use the other word, abolish. Okay, whatever they say, they want to cancel it. Okay, this is not new. 2014, I already heard that some elect official, assemblyman member, assemblyman or whatever, elect official, city council, we have to change it. It's unfair. This is specialized high school, Stuyvesant High School, Bronx High School, Brooklyn. The other 5 high schools only admitted by who? By Asian and white students. The other ethnic group, the Spanish, black student, only very small portion of the students admit in these high schools. Why they cannot admit? Because they did not pass the test. We, our Asian students and white students, pass the test because you know why? They studied very, very hard. They have very solid education background in elementary school, in junior high school. My children, they did not go to tutoring high school. They did not go to Saturday tutoring high school because I'm sorry to say that I was very poor. I cannot afford that. I cannot afford my children go to tutoring school on Saturday, Sunday. They took the test. I did not force them. I did not give them any pressure. Hey, Jason, Alina, you had to pass the test. I never say that. When they finish the test, they come home. Daddy, I finished it. And then we set the result. They make it, okay? That's how it is. I tell you why they pass it, because they have a very solid educational background in elementary school and junior high school. Now, those elect officials, they always said that this test had to change it to different methods. Quota system. This special high school had to put some Spanish African student, 10 or student in each high schools. This is called quota system without taking a test. Okay, number 2 method, portfolio method. Portfolio, use the students' standardized test, school record, teacher recommendation. This is very unfair too. Teacher recommendation, if I know you, I got a very good recommendation letter. Okay, the other assignment method. Assignment method, assign each of the 2 best students for junior high school. In this A high schools, this called the best junior high school because they have different levels. This method is very unfair. Okay, what I'm going to suggest, the mayor don't use our Asian and white student as a chess pawn. Definitely it's a political game. That's a chess pawn. I put those chairs here, I put the chairs here, I put the chairs here, called chess pawn. That's a game, okay? That's a political game. I don't know what he's thinking. Maybe he's thinking, if I change this specialized high school, maybe Spanish voters vote for me, African voters will vote for me, or something like that. What he should do, he should improving the elementary and the junior high school education system. As Mr. Mark Traeger mentioned before, give them more gift and talent program, give them more resources, okay? And each borough, you had to set up a specialized high school. Use the same curriculum as a Stuyvesant, as a Brown Science, as a Brooklyn Tech. Compare those curriculum. Let the Spanish student, let the African student go to those school. That's how it is. You don't change those specialized high school. You punish those kids. Who pays those tests? I tell you the truth. Those 100 Asian students took the test. Only 5 or 10 students who can pass the test. How about the 80 students? The mayor, our school chancellor, didn't even look at it, okay? He even punished those 10 students or 20 students who pass it. Okay, now, there's a test, as Mr. Colton mentioned before, not finished yet. Just finish it for the time being. I'm guarantee you, school chancellor, our mayor, going to send a strong lobbyist group to the Albany, going to talk to the assemblyman, state senator, going to talk to them every single day. We had a set up education committee, like a coalition or something like that. Work on it, okay? And also we had to work there for the long run. Where's your power? It's in your head. Not in Mr. Colton, I'm sorry to say that. Okay? Your power is in our hand. We vote for him, okay? So in the future, how we do that, we have to go to work, go to the poll. Thank you very much.